So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries, regarding holy cities on Yeshayahu chapter 1:8. Then as the Messiah returns for his holy cities, then we understand on the land of Cush, the first holy city precisely where Yohanan was at. And then not only this, but the world of the Gentiles is also changing very rapidly, as developments a few moments ago regarding then parts of the Soviet Union returning, and then the great nation must become once again as it was, but greater. So let's then understand what these means as far as then the West, and then the transition taking place from the 1,000 years of deceit, and then we are obviously during a very special time where then the nations are once again aware of the fact of the holy cities then returning. These obviously won't pose any kind of a danger, because the cities, they merely give advice. But then many are asking, what are then the objectives of the future? It's very simple: generating more jobs. As we can understand, the Soviet Union requires lots of time invested in then generating many jobs, understandably related with arms mostly. Not only this, but then internet taxes is becoming then extremely important. But let's try then understand Daniel the 11th chapter, because as we read, then we are becoming more aware of the prophecy's certainties, as we then verified many months ago regarding then the returning of the Soviet Union last year. Many of these videos were then published, and many people didn't understand it, didn't believe it. So then, for those who are skeptical, today was a very important day. But what is then regarding the future of some of the nations? Very simple. Daniel the 11th chapter then states on 11:5, then the kingdom of the south then shall be strong. There are many factors contributing for this very specific verse, as we then understand the kingdom of the south being Africa, and the relationship of northern Africa and the holy city on the land of Cush, and many factors coming from Yeshayahu the prophet, many layers related with tabernacling on the land of Cush. It is the utmost importance then verifying why then Yeshayahu the prophet mentioned regarding then the fierce ones related with the Africans south of the rivers of Ethiopia. Why are they so fierce? Let's first then establish the importance of the holy city on the land of Cush. As the Messiah, then obviously he came, and he instructed his people regarding then the spring feast, and then the post-spring feast, the entire year he spent with his people. Then he ascended, and then later his people then gathered around, and they went obviously where Yohanan was at, and they formed the first holy city. So then the total were then 8 cities, 7 of them in Asia Minor, and 1 of them in northern Africa. As we read then this section related with Yeshayahu chapter 1:8, what can we establish? From north to south, we then understand south of those rivers of Ethiopia, places us then around Congo and Rwanda in east and west. Those places are very fertile. As the holy city of the Messiah then was established on the land of Cush, you can understand the importance of the unification of both brothers. Because of Ibrahim had a couple of sons, one of them was related with trade, he was the king of trade, or then a leader of trade. Then the second son was the leader of tabernacling. As then harmony was established on the land of Cush, and then the northern part of Africa, you can understand then the importance of maintenance of this harmony, and it was like this for more than 1,000 years, as you can understand. If you make the calculations, it is truly a bit over of 1,000 years, because we must count the transitional time. So then, let's evaluate why then, for instance, the country of Niger is extremely fierce as far as the way they do trade, or they used to do trade, and they are very fierce to this day. But then, from the land of Cush in east and west, you can understand the entire northern Africa being a place of very highly understandable people, and then trade being established on the north. From the south, as we understand beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, you find then the fierce ones. What was then the objective of those people being so fierce? Try to understand yourself as then a restricting valve of a system. The people of the south, they were coming up to the north because they did understand the importance of tabernacling. And then the trade from the south went to the north. But then those fierce people on a halfway down south was then fighting for the people of the north. Thus then we understand what Yeshayahu the prophet has mentioned as far as the fierce ones south of the rivers of Ethiopia. From the north, you find then the ocean up north. It is absolutely sure there were some type of navy forces going on the north side, protecting then the northern coast of the northern Africa. From the south, you find then the fierce ones taking care of and securing the southern portion, and they did not permit people with much influence coming up north and trying to bind over the place. Then from east to west, you find then, in quote, an imaginary line where they were then obviously very influential upon the land. But not only this, let's try then understand what is then the next objective regarding the nations. As we read further down, you find then China making a deal with Congo. So then it is re-established, the fierce ones, and then tabernacling re-established on the land of Cush. Then not only this, but then Cuba. Let's then understand and read further. Then comes verse number 7. And in those times wilt then stand then the Gentile Netzer, as the ramifications of the past history related with this time. As we understand, the Messiah was then the Netzer. Regarding then the olive plant, when it becomes grown up, then you find if you cut down the plant, it can sometimes 1,000 years later coming out a sprout out of it from its ramification system. When we read then Daniel the prophet, and then the nations understandably concerned with this time, it is the same word used but on a Gentile sense. What do we understand of this? Finishing up the work of Che Guevara in Congo and lifting the sanctions from Cuba, and both places united once again. Nationwide, as far as we can understand, this is what's coming. But then, truly the important topic at this moment is then internet taxes. These truly must never be neglected. There are some countries that are trying then of having some sort of a control of their finances and trying to place some control over the new system. You can already understand the importance of taxation. And some of the nations are concerned as far as the expansion of the Soviet Union. They should not be concerned with them. There are lots of work, lots of situations going on, lots of factories must be built and providing jobs for the people. But then the expansion of the Soviet Union must become greater than the first. So as far as we can understand, as a military force, then the Soviet Union rules, as the Kingdom of the North later comes with much equipment. China is obviously the leader of trade. It does not mean China is not strong as far as military is concerned. But there are steps of formation. And as China then closes a deal with the Congo, then later you can understand what it means then, these force coming from the north, coming to the south and crushing. Crushing means then destroying the idealistic understanding of being rebels and re-establishing then harmony. At some point, people won't understand the whole fact. But as people are more aware of the holy instructions and the certainty of them, then you can understand. So it's very important lifting the sanctions of Cuba. As then China and the Soviet Union, and then Congo and Cuba and many other socialist countries, they are then gathered, then they will provide many jobs for many countries. It won't be by force anymore. Some people, because they are very limited in their understanding, they think it's going to be precisely as it was, but it won't. Those times were ruled by force, technology and force. This time technology has reached nearly its maximum potential. Only left then trade. Trade must be improved. And there is a king of trade yet waiting for this. But the formation is very clear. As far as we can understand, you find the Gentile Netzer being reunited, and then a harmony re-established on Africa. As we can understand, there is much riches on Congo and the region, the eastern side particularly. Then the scripture also mentions the word fort. Then when Daniel the prophet, he was also mentioning regarding this fort, the combination of trade, being himself on top of it, placed there by divine guidance, and then tabernacling, a portion of tabernacling Daniel himself, because he did understand by reading then Yirmiyahu's Megillahs. Then came the end of the 70 years of captivity. This, however, is very important, because as people they go forward, they understand that holy cities are for advisement. As then the West in Europe, they truly nearly lost their wits. They became overly complicated. Their governments, in quote, inflated with people, and those people they don't produce. They only can cast opinions and estimates based from ridiculous backgrounds. Some of those people never were involved with the everyday manufacturing, and people expect wisdom from these near no use people. But then it's coming a time where many people will then use the computer for trade. So truly, the computer is the very equipment of our days, electronic equipment, that will remove those people from power. So then it was said many times before regarding kingdom of the east, north and south, and then the relationship amongst them. Other countries, as far as we can understand, the only indication there is in the holy instructions is the lack of instructions regarding the other nations, other than rebuilding themselves. What it does states very plainly is then the huge force of the Soviet Union, being the kingdom of the north. They are the upright ones of Daniel 11. Then the joining of Congo, because you layer then Daniel with Yirmiyahu, because in the same region. And these understandings are always related with tabernacling. So then you understand Yohanan. You understand then later the persecution when the Messiah ascended. Then you understand the straightening out of those 7 cities in Asia Minor, and a number of other layers related with this time. And also, very importantly, Ezekiel, the 37th chapter. As we can understand, on the land of Cush, they are very familiar with the Mahdi. Mahdi is then an Islamic leader, and they are yet awaiting for the Mahdi to re-show himself up. But then, why is it so important, this Mahdi, of becoming once again popular amongst the people? Simply what he did previously is then returning, joined up with the first anointing of the first son, trade, and then these Mahdi yet coming as they are expecting. Not only the Mahdi then understand what was done before, plus the understanding of the advisement of tabernacling, without placing any kind of a control over the people. So then, you can expect more developments coming. But as far as nations' opinion, Europe, as we understand, is a breaking piece of the globe as far as financing is concerned. Their system won't last for very long as far as the influence thereof. The West is nearly done and bankrupt, and what is left then is then the re-establishing of tabernacling, precisely as then the prophet has mentioned, on the land of Cush, re-establishing those old roots of the time, uniting Egypt, uniting Syria, and making sure those roots are then re-established. At the moment, we are awaiting for then the launching of the new system, roughly another 20 to 30 months yet. So then people have an understanding, and they can structurize their lives, always understanding that doubting tabernacling is always deadly. But the situation should improve. It was a great victory today for the Holy Instructions. We are then during a very special time, a time of rebuilding, time of work. And providing jobs for the people. And then understanding this year yet, then Congo and China must make a deal. Then later on, then comes the Soviet Union in Congo and the Soviet Union, then in Cuba, in releasing Cuba from its bondage of sanctions for so many years. This truly is coming next. So then when we read the 7th verse of the 11th chapter, then we understand. So then, please stay tuned. Much more coming up. Later then, I'm going to explore more of this understanding of taxes, the system, what's going on with the trade in the world, as then the transitional time is more evident. By then, the waning of the West, the reduction of its influence, and then the importance of the grandiose time of the Northern Kingdom. And because of this, nations can expect great deals with arms, high quality equipment for the protection of their borders. So then the West in Europe, they won't invade with their nonsense of diplomatic junk. Was always very intriguing. Reading, for instance, the problem with Somalia years ago, and they yet have lots of problems yet. But then a fact of shipment of water, spending thousands and thousands and thousands, such a huge amount of money. And if you glance at the map of Somalia, you understand that they are near the ocean. And these politicians truly believe they don't understand the word desalinization, the simply burning of seawater and a few levels of filtration. But they'd rather stealing the money from governments and wasting them. Can they be trusted? No. Stay tuned.